All right, joining me today is Josh Burnett. He is a church planter and entrepreneur, starter of tech companies, and just a wonderful, wonderful human being. So, welcome, Josh, and thank you for joining us today.
Oh man, thanks, E. I really appreciate it. That was really kind of you to say. You're a wonderful human being.
I've got a wonderful beard now. I don't know about the
You
rest of it.
do. I was like, I don't know if I should mention this, but I love the beard. It's
Yeah, I'm
amazing.
going for biblical, but I'm not quite there yet. so
I
it's
mean, you're on your way.
All right, so let's just jump right in. Talk to me about AI in general. What are you seeing on this amazing front?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, AI is an interesting term in at large, and depending on what angle you're coming at it from, you may be really familiar, you may not be familiar. I talk to so many different people on this front, but in the thing that for the last year has sort of been in the news constantly, and if you're on social media, it's like all over the place on social media, is the large language model, which is what most everybody means when they say AI at this
Right.
point. But AI is, kind of really ubiquitous already. It's been present in our lives. If you have a smartphone, AI is a part of your day-to-day life. And the large language model has provided some pretty incredible opportunities for, I mean, a lot of different fronts. But I'll be honest with you, from my perspective, coming from the church world, I literally don't know of a kind of market segment that is more aligned to the opportunities presented through large language models, or what some people would say generative AI, the ability to interact with it in a way that it then can like almost sound human. Um, the church is really really aligned because we have this like regular routine and rhythm of creating content on Sundays, and then you can take that content and use AI to do so many things that a lot of churches are trying to do but aren't great at doing, or struggle to do, or it's a burden to them, or they feel like they're never measuring up. And literally with you know using AI, you can do it better than you've ever been able to do it, or start doing it at a level that's extremely high right out of the gate. And it's a beautiful beautiful thing. So yeah.
I obviously, everybody I think has played with AI a little bit just to see it and smell it. But what have you seen in the last, say, year and a half in terms of the progression? Because it seems like it's on this exponential curve of, you know, increasing capabilities.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, the cool thing about the last year has been just getting to watch people be creative with something that has actually been around for a long time. Like large language models aren't really new, but our hardware is what has actually enabled us to do more with them than we've ever been able to do. So
That's
the
interesting.
chips that are being created and stuff allow the processing power to be able to take a large language model and literally associate every word of input with every word that's ever been written, and how those are interrelated. And so the responses you get from like ChatGPT, it's funny to say this, but they're just math.
Right.
And it's literally just giving you a here's what, based on some training data as well, but based on that training data and how every other word has ever been used that you're putting into your request relates to every other time it's ever been used throughout pretty much everything that's ever been written. And that piece of it is it's funny because it's getting better and better in some ways. And if you use ChatGPT, it's if you use it a lot, you probably are familiar with the fact that in the last like month and a half, it has gotten worse. Like the answers are worse. People are saying ChatGPT is getting dumber, and it's because of use. But the cool thing has just been to watch people be creative, and to for me to be able to take part in that creativity with what we've built in our building. But being able to see how people are taking things like podcasts and doing so much more. Like, hey, you can take or a sermon like we do and summarize it, create really excellent small group discussion guide questions based on it, that type of thing. And then what I'm really excited about is the ability for the church, at least, to take trained models that are trained on sermons and other content that churches have created and generate everything from social media posts, so that like AI basically takes over your social media calendar and can write you'll have to give it some input for like volunteer highlights. Like, it's not going to you wouldn't want it to invent a volunteer, obviously. You want to use a real person, but it can take that person and a little bit of input about them and write something beautiful to like really celebrate, hey, the work that they're doing is meaningful and actually making a difference. And so, stuff like that I think is just really powerful for the church. And then just in general, if it's okay, can I like nerd out with you a little bit?
Oh yeah, please. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So at CES, which is a massive like technology conference that just happened, there was a company that just unveiled something called the Rabbit R1. Have you seen it, E?
No.
Oh my gosh, you got to go look this up. It is so cool. I bought one already. And I'm not even going to get it until June, but I'm so stoked about it. So it is a piece of hardware that has an operating system, an AI operating system on it. And what they've developed is what's called a large action model, which is kind of something that we've been working on actually a little bit. And they have a really advanced version of it that is, if it can do even a tenth of the things that they're saying it's going to be able to do, I'm super excited about it. But basically it can, they go out and index platforms and understand every action that's possible on a platform. So the large language model, if you're like, hey, plan me and my family a trip to go to Europe or something like that. This is kind of the example they use in the Rabbit's unveiling. A large language model can be like, well, here's what you should do, and it can kind of interact with you and help you plan that trip. This can book the plane tickets, the hotel rooms, like the guided tours, the restaurant reservations. Like, it can do all of the things that you would want it to be able to do. And so it's a really cool example of where I think computing is going. In the next like 2 to 3 years, I really do think that we won't be in front of screens nearly as much as we are today. And we probably won't type nearly as much as we do today. Like, I think even our smartphones, I think, are going to be something that, there's tons of research about why they're bad for us. And I think AI is actually going to help us solve that problem in a lot of ways. Sorry. Yeah, that was kind of nerdy.
What you're telling me is that Jarvis from Iron Man is right around the corner. So it's like in terms of, in some ways, right? I'm to say, order me a pizza, or book me an Uber, or give me the options for a big trip, and it can even do multi-step complicated things. That's kind of cool.
Yes. Yeah. I think Jarvis is like pretty close to being a reality. Like, the idea of being able to talk to your computer and have it do very complicated things that would require human interaction are like fully going to be possible in a year.
Yeah, that's crazy. I wouldn't have guessed that soon. It's interesting. I was, in terms of my own use of AI, it's hilariously low level. But what I've really enjoyed is it's my little research buddy, right? So I was doing a message series on the resurrection, and so it's like, okay, ChatGPT, give me all post-resurrection appearances of Christ in order with the reference. Done. And it's not like I can't do that. I can do that. I can slug through the Gospels or Bible Gateway and probably take me 2 hours to grab it and copy it and get it in the right order. It just did it in seconds. It was amazing. I was so happy. It was like, this is fantastic. It just saved me an afternoon of time, just from the let's take a swing. And it occurs to me that there are probably a ton of things that we could be doing that we're not doing yet, but that will become more and more common. So, and I know that's what you're working on. So give me a specific example of how a church would use some of the things that you're doing to help out. How would it walk me through the process. How does it work?
Yeah. So, I mean, Church.Tech is the platform that we've built, and the way that it works currently. I'll kind of give you like a here's where it's at now, and then a little bit of peek behind the curtain of like what's coming out in about a month. So you can upload your sermon to the platform. So, and you can do that before you preach or after you preach. It'll take audio or video files. You can upload a YouTube link, like you just drop in the link, or you can even put in a manuscript. Or like, it doesn't even have to be a manuscript. It can be just an outline that's, got, a decent amount of detail in it, but it doesn't have to be. If it was a page long outline with, hey, here's where I'm going with things, that would be plenty. And then right now, you can drop that into the platform. Let's say you uploaded your outline before you're actually going to Sunday. And we have this thing called the playground. So you can go into the playground, and it's got your outline, your manuscript, or even a recorded version of you kind of practicing. And you can say, hey, I need a better opening illustration, or I need an opening illustration that ties into my main point. And it will give you, and you can say, hey, I want examples from history. I want examples from business, from sports, like, come up with some ideas for me. What would work really well? And it'll give you a list of stories that you can go invest in. Similar to what you were saying of like, hey, show me all the post-resurrection appearances of Christ in order, it allows you to be more creative on the front side.
Yeah.
We're actually building an entire feature set called Sermon Copilot, which is an ethical AI augmented sermon writing tool. I can talk more about that in a second, but that's kind of how you can use it pre-actual preaching on Sunday. Right now, we've got a whole lot of other little tools that are outside of Sunday stuff as well that we call prompt buttons. But then once you've preached your sermon, you can upload the YouTube video or if you record the audio or record a video file, drop it in, and we can do a whole host of things. So one, we can write your small group content and put it into a format that's really easy to deliver to your small group leaders and the members of your small groups, like that. So we can give you a summary. We like to say everything that we are giving you, all the content we're creating is 90% done for you. So the hardest part of the work is going to be done. It's way easier to edit than it is to create from nothing. And so we can summarize using AI the whole sermon in a couple sentences for you. You go through, edit that really quickly. Yep, it's good to go. And then we write 5 discussion questions for every sermon that's uploaded. And I'm just going to tell you right now, they're better than 99.9% of humans can do. We've really worked hard to tune that in. And then it'll do a whole guided prayer experience based on the context of the sermon. So for the small group, you can start with prayer requests, and then it'll give you several things to kind of pray through as a group together based on the context of the sermon. It'll also write a 5-day devotional for you really quickly. So now you've got, hey, I can text this out to my church every morning at 8 a.m. and they've got like a 3 to 4 minute reflection, scripture, prayer, action step every single day based on the context of the sermon. So it just allows you to create content that allows people to really pursue, following Jesus to a much greater degree. It's not just, hey, I preached on Sunday. What in the world happened with that? I don't know, or, it's hard to help people kind of take that and really operationalize it, so to speak. So that's what it does. It'll also chop up, if you upload via YouTube, it'll chop up your sermon into clips that you can post on social media. It gives you social posts, and you can do a lot with it right now.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. And I can see how that would be quite useful. I was thinking about the intersection of technology and Christianity, kind of big picture. And it seems to me that the church has maybe not always hit a home run, but has done pretty well in terms of leveraging technology and being on the cutting edge of things. I mean, the printing press happens. the first thing off the press is the Gutenberg Bible. Right?
Yep.
When radio
100%.
happens, there were some, Billy Graham jumped on that pretty early. With some of the media things, with some of the internet things, certainly no one's more active in a live streaming space than churches are at this point.
Yep.
So we kind of have this idea that the church is behind the times, or that they don't interface well with technology. I'm not sure that's true. I think they've always had a foot in the door, and in terms of being able to use this in their cultural context. So with where we are right now, why is engaging this kind of technology super important for the church, do you think?
Yeah, I really do think it's important for the church to jump in and understand what AI is and what the potential is, because I kind of said this at the beginning. I literally do not think there is a segment of the market that is more aligned to using this well to solve massive problems, and not just with content from Sunday. We're building a tool that for the end user allows them to effectively create like a spiritual formation plan, basically, for a year, and say, this is who I feel like the Holy Spirit is leading and guiding me to become. And then to literally have that walk alongside of you. Like, so if you were like, man, I really want to grow in how I am loving and serving my neighbors, you can add that to your spiritual formation plan, and it will give you ideas for how to do that actively. And like the way that we're building this, you'll be able to say, hey, I want notifications to remind me at times when I might actually have time to do something, right? So that it, can kind of spawn like that action and activity, without this like, oh, I have to come up with the idea. It's gonna, really take who you are, what you're capable of, and like your skill sets and your passions, and align those and help you really live that out. So, and that's just one example of, how the church and followers of Jesus can take it and really utilize it to, become more like Jesus and be Jesus more actively. I also think it's going to help the church step away from the dangers of social media. And I think we will lead the way on this front, because I think there is, no matter what, this might sound like slightly political, but I would say no matter what side of the aisle you fall on politically speaking, I think that there is an acknowledgement that screens in general have harmed our ability to like know our neighbor.
Yeah.
And love people well and get along even with people. And I think it's going to help the church kind of lead the way to say, hey, you can put some AI filtering on the content that you receive from some of these platforms, and just say like, no, like anything that's going to lead me to hate my neighbor, I don't want to see that. Like, that's not, like, filter that out. Like, if it's something I need to know about, okay, fine, like you can let that through. But I think there's going to be a lot of implications on that front where the church has the opportunity to say, hey, we can lead the way and, loving people well, and like caring for those who we may not agree with or get along with. But even with that, we built a little tiny tool that is like an empathy coach, basically. And I think that is a massive opportunity for the church to latch on to and say, like, how can I see somebody who I don't like, probably, maybe even as a real human being made in the image of God, who probably has like the concerns and cares and opinions that they have for reasons that are in some way tied to the image of God in them. I may not agree with it, but, so yeah, anyhow. I don't know if that all made sense or not, but yeah, I think there's
that's exciting stuff. It's not, because part of it is it's kind of the Jarvis admin of, help me around the edges with where I'm going anyway, but also to actually add new ideas and real value. Like give me some options I may not have thought of before, and you can actually do that too. That's pretty cool. So
Yeah, if it can be present with us in our day-to-day lives and give us feedback based on what we are trying to actually do and become, Like, imagine a feedback loop that's not just like, here's a whole bunch of hate in your,
Right.
in your wall feed on any
Right.
social media platform out there, that's going to make you angrier than you were because that's what keeps you on the platform. Like, actually help you do and become who you want to be and who God created you to be. When we have like the Jesus influence on that, I think that there's some massive opportunities for us. Even like in parenting, like if you think about like, man, what if I had like a parenting coach that was literally with me everywhere I go and could remind me when I'm in the car, like, hey, this might be a good time to talk to your kid about, and here's a question you could ask them that's based on like how old your kid is and what they've been, struggling with lately, or what they've been learning in school lately, or, anyhow. That may sound a little big brothery, but I think there's lots of opportunities for privacy control and protection as well with AI that are going to be very helpful. So.
Well, the interesting thing about that is presumably you would be in control of some of the pieces of the algorithm that's making your input bigger or smaller. So instead of Facebook deciding that for me, right? I could
exactly
talk to my AI, and my AI could wade into the Wild West and filter out some things that I just don't need in my feed. But that's really,
I think that's
really cool.
That's why the church really needs to be on the forefront of this movement and needs to be engaged, and Christians need to be educated about what this actually is, and not just succumb to the fear mongering of like, oh, it's gonna become, the Terminator is on its way,
So on that front, if Karen were here, she would say something about along that line. Are there potential dangers to AI that you would see, or where would the scope or potential of this to go bad? What should we look out for?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely dangers. You can take this and do a whole host of very evil things, both small and large. Misinformation is already a massive issue anyways, and it's going to become a bigger issue because now, even if you just jump back to the political side of things of like what could divide us, like this could divide us as well. It could be used as a tool to create greater division. And it will be and is being used actually as a tool to create greater division, because you can target profiles and speak specifically to the things that motivate that person.
Right.
And so, I think that's where there's a lot of danger. I'm very like, the thing for me that is most concerning about AI is related to that, in that it could become an even greater echo chamber than social media.
Right.
I don't think it will. I actually think this is why the church needs to lead the charge on this, because I think it has the ability to help us step back from that. But, if you, like, a good example of this would be, if you look at some of the apps that have been made using using AI in the app stores, like digital girlfriend, digital boyfriend type apps are something that there's quite a few of. The problem with that is it kind of creates, it's like a pornographic relationship. It's not real. It's only going to say what you want it to say. And that will degrade our ability to like bear one another's burdens, right? Like if I have this thing in my life that's just going to make me happy all the time and never tell me anything I don't agree with or don't like how are we ever going to learn to like actually get to know one another? And so, yeah, I think that's and I think that really comes back to the ethics of it in terms of how we use AI and how the church uses AI. We should not use it to replace human relationships. We should use it to make human relationships more to restore our ability as humans to be in relationship with one another is how I think AI should be used from an ethical perspective, and especially in the church. So yeah,
that's an interesting idea. Hey, I need to get together with my friends, like set up an event, kind of, I mean, really to be more, it's so easy to be busy and let some of these intentional relational things go. And this could be an opportunity to help with that.
Yeah, actually, I mean, that actually is a thing that I've been thinking about a lot. I have a group of friends that I get together with twice a year. They're all pastors, and we get together twice a year. We spend so much time just trying to figure out when our calendars align.
Right.
But we could literally, like, I've thought about actually making this. It's like, an AI tool that plugs into your calendar, looks at your calendar, looks at a group of people's calendars and goes, here's when you're going to get together and books the trip.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So what's next in this space? I mean, other than the Rabbit R1, which I will definitely look at. I love little gadgety things. It's fantastic. What do you see even 3-5 years down the road? Are there things that we're not necessarily expecting that you might have from your perspective?
Do you do you want me to stay more focused on the church or just in general?
Either way.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I do think that what we're going to see a lot of is a movement away from the way that we traditionally interact with computers. Sitting at a screen with a keyboard, I think that those days are numbered. And I think in 10 years, I don't think anyone will know how to type. Like any kid that is, they won't be a thing. You won't type. It'll be very like Star Trek Jarvis-esque, where you just talk to the computer and the computer interacts with you. I think screens will continue to go away as well. The Apple Provision sold out, and they were very skeptical of whether or not they'd be able to get people to buy it, both because of how expensive it is and because it's just like the very first version of something that they've ever put out. But Apple they're not really innovators. What they do is perfect a very user-friendly experience for things. Even with the iPhone, like that was not something that didn't exist, or the iPod, like even with Jobs, it was still like, they just take something and make it so easy to use and so beautiful and elegant that you want to use that thing. And I think that that's going to become like more and more ubiquitous, that our computers will live on glasses or in our ears, like without, or there's another thing called the Humane AI pen, and it's like a lapel. It's like Star Trek is what it reminds me of. Is like, you hit the "Theme me up, Scotty," but it actually has a camera and can see what you can see, and it has this weird little laser interface where if you hold your hand in front of it, it will project words onto your hand. So if you need to read a text message and not have it read to you out loud, you can read the text on your hand. It's really cool technology. And I think we're going to see lots and lots more of that. AI is going to become ubiquitous. It'll be in every single thing. And it's kind of like, I have a 15-year-old, 12-year-old and an 11-year-old, and they have no concept of what the internet is, because it's always been there. And they just don't even know, like Wi-Fi. They're like, wait, Wi-Fi? What's Wi-Fi? I'm like, it's the router in our home. I keep doing the thumbs up thing. Sorry about that. So I think that's gonna be kind of where, from a user perspective, it trends toward. I think there's gonna be a lot of like different with any new thing, the ethics always trail innovation. So we're going to have ways that this affects us similar to social media that we don't understand right now, and we will have to evolve our understanding as they're happening to us, unfortunately. But I do think that coming out of the social media era and into a new kind of way of interacting with this crazy technological acceleration that we've seen in the last 20 years. I think that there's enough voices engaged right now that are going to say, hey, we have to think about how this is used and give the end user a very clear understanding of like what this has the potential to do. I also think there's going to be a lot of really bad things that happen with it, from manipulating elections by by using misinformation campaigns and stuff like that. I don't know, like that's just gonna, but that's already happening in different ways already, and so you'll see a lot of that, but in like by and large, I think it has the ability to help humanity at large in some incredible ways, because it gives people the ability to it kind of like levels the playing field a little bit. Like if you are growing up in a third world country where there is almost no educational system and no social system to like help you along the way, and now you can learn a language that would enable you to do work that you couldn't do otherwise, and AI is going to facilitate that, or even like frankly not even have to learn a language, because it can auto translate for you as you're talking, and then it provides kind of the ability for us to really begin working on problems that are, from a social perspective. I think it's gonna create a lot of new jobs. Everybody's afraid of what it's going to take away. I think it's going to create more than it takes.
Yeah, that's always been the case with tech. It's strange, but the example I'm reminded of is people were afraid that ATMs were going to kill banks.
Yeah.
And actually, what people figured out was they love ATMs because it's the simple transaction you can do, but there's also stuff you need a person for. And the banks figured out that it's a competitive advantage to have a brick and mortar place that can do those other things. And so they made them smaller, a little leaner, but they're actually more tellers now than there ever have been. And so it's just it's an interesting dynamic. They're doing different stuff and maybe more meaningful stuff. But yeah, it's always been the case that technology is certainly disruptive in terms of job stuff, but it tends to create more than it destroys, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think that human relationships are going to become a commodity. Like the ability to engage with a real person is going to become more like, if the Industrial Revolution, kind of started to chip away at being able to interact with people in a way that is, even just like polite, because now you're like a cog in a machine, and the further down that rabbit hole we go, humans are being used very similar to robots. The way that we think about being able to use robots, and I think this is going to turn things in the opposite direction, because robots will be doing a lot of things that like we have humans doing now, and we won't need them to do that. That sounds scary at first until you realize that the same technology that enables that is the technology that's going to enable a much more level playing field when it comes to education. And I happen to believe that because we have the image of God in us, that every human has a longing and a desire to make and create and to be everything that they were created to be. And opportunity is what changes who gets to do that. And I think this is going to change that in a lot of ways.
That's a really interesting idea, because you're right. And one of the things that happened in the Industrial Revolution was people, they like jobs before then, right? You would apprentice, or you would learn a skill, or if you wanted to be, a leather worker, you would go apprentice with a leather worker and you would learn how to do it. And eventually you might open up your own shop. And with the advent of the factory, you didn't have to have any skill. You literally just brought your labor, as it were, which, by the way, was kind of used euphemistically for prostitutes. They didn't have a skill off, but they had their body, and they could just use that as their labor to make money and get by in the world. And it was a bit of a dehumanizing enterprise to some extent.
Yeah,
it's where you could just reduce somebody down, away from their calling, away from their giftedness, away from the thing that made them uniquely cool or interesting, and just you stand here and do this repetitive motion all day that is cheap for you to do. And what I hear you saying is, and it's a really interesting idea, is the advent of AI could almost turn that on its head in terms of what's going to really differentiate us is the things that make us most human, and so that those things will become more valuable, and we can clear away some of the standing at the factory with the widget stuff, and we can focus
Yeah.
more on art and community and relational things, and those things will take, those things will become more important kind of in our uh, corporate cultural thinking. It's a really interesting idea. I haven't heard anybody say that before, but man, it's really encouraging. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that the thing for me that is so exciting about it is I really do think it levels the playing field in so many ways. And it's going to create real opportunity for people um, to just become who God created them to be.
yeah,
And on every level.
right,
And I mean, I'm not saying it's anything like it's not our savior by any stretch of the
right, right.
imagination. Jesus is, but I think we've lost a lot of our ability and capacity as humans, especially in the United States in the last 20 years or so, from these echo chambers.
Yeah,
And I think if we can begin to see our neighbor and as a person created in the image of God, even if we strongly disagree with them or don't like them for some reason,
right.
um, it changes the way we think about, in interacting with not only that person but every person. Yeah, I'm very optimistic about it. I think that there's, and mostly because I do think the church is actually engaging on it. When we first started doing this, there was all kinds of fear and people saying like, "Oh, the church isn't going to like this. The church is going to reject
Right.
this." And I'm not seeing that at all. Like I mean, certainly there are people who are afraid, and there
Yeah.
are good reasons to be afraid. But by and large, most churches that we're interacting with, um, when they realize, hey, this is a tool that will allow you to make more disciples and to
Yeah.
be with people, which, from a pastor's perspective, this, I know this, like
Yeah.
we spend way more of our time in front of a screen and keyboard than I think God's calling us to,
Yeah.
like at least
That's
for
fair.
me, like I'll speak for me. Like I was spending 85% of my time behind a screen and keyboard. And, I just don't think that's not really what ministry is about. It's about that's not how Jesus spent his time. He spent his time
Right.
with people.
Yeah.
And, and how can we do that and, get back to that. So anyhow, all right, I'll go on and on about it. You got to watch out.
No, it's all good. All right. So how can people get to you, and if they wanted to investigate some of the stuff you're doing at Church.Tech, how do they find you? How do they sign up and investigate?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can just go to our website, Church.Tech. That's our actual website, Church.Tech, and you can jump into the platform for free. Even on the landing page, we allow you to throw a sermon into the platform, and we'll text you. You put your phone number in, we'll text you an example of the discipleship guide that we create.
Oh wow.
It's not a full-fledged version of it, but it's it's like a
It
little
takes it.
taste.
Yeah.
But you can create a free account. You can upload 2 sermons into that account to kind of get a feel for how it works and everything. And and then we actually have a little chat modal on the site. So if you want to connect with our team, it's a very small team, and we're on that thing constantly. So you can jump in and talk with us there. And then I'm not on social media very often, but
Yeah.
if you want to connect with me that way, you can do that. Or Eric's got my number. He can always. I'm happy to chat as well. So yeah, absolutely. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, first of all, just for not giving this entire space over to more malevolent forces. Thank you for being a force for good here. I'm completely serious about that, by the way. You're laughing. But also, just thank you for the time today. I really appreciate it. And, everyone who's seeing this, man, check it out. There's some really good stuff here. We have an opportunity to be an early adopter in this space in ways that will push it in positive, in good, in healthy, in godly ways. And so I think we have a responsibility to really look at that and take it seriously. So Thanks again, Josh, and we will talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, E. It's really fun.